I want you to do something right now before I say another word. Sit up straight wherever you are watching this. Now think about the last time you woke up in the morning and your legs felt genuinely light, felt ready, felt like they actually wanted to carry you through the day without complaint. Can you remember that feeling? Because if you are over 60 and you are watching this video right now, there is a very good chance that feeling has been getting harder and harder to find every morning. And I want to tell you something important before we go any further. The heaviness you feel in your legs every morning is not laziness. It is not just age. And it is absolutely not something you simply have to accept and manage for the rest of your life. There is a reason it is happening. A specific, biological, well-researched reason that most doctors never explain because the appointment ends before they get to it. And by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly what that reason is, exactly why it gets worse as the years go on, and exactly what you can start doing about it today, not next month, not after you see a specialist, today. Before we go any further, I want you to drop something in the comments right now. Just one word or one number. Tell me which leg is heavier in the morning, left, right, or both. Just type it quickly while I get started. I want to know exactly what you are dealing with because it matters to what I am about to explain. I am Dr. Marcus Bell, and this is Senior Strength Guide. Let us get into it. Part 1. The question nobody asks, and the answer that changes everything. Most people who experience heavy legs in the morning assume one of three things. They assume they slept in a bad position. They assume their circulation is just getting worse with age. Or they assume this is simply what 65 or 70 or 75 feels like, and there is not much to be done about it. I spent decades in clinical practice watching seniors make exactly this assumption. And I watched it cost them years of unnecessary discomfort, reduced mobility, and a quiet shrinking of their daily world as the heaviness in their legs began to dictate what they could and could not do each morning. Here is what almost nobody tells you. The heavy leg feeling in the morning is not one thing. It is a cluster of overlapping biological issues that each deserve their own explanation and their own targeted solution. And when you understand the full picture, which we are going to build together right here today, the path forward becomes genuinely clear. The leading cause that most people never suspect is lymphatic congestion combined with overnight venous pooling. And I am going to break that down into plain language in just a moment. But before I do, I want to ask you something. Has your doctor ever mentioned the word lymphatic system to you in the context of your leg heaviness? Has anyone ever explained to you what happens inside the blood vessels and tissue of your legs during the 7 or 8 hours while you lie still and sleep every night? If the answer is no, which for the vast majority of seniors it is, type NO in the comments right now. Because what I am about to explain is the foundation of everything else in this video. And I want you to know that the fact you have never heard it is not your fault. It is a gap in the way senior health is communicated. And that is exactly why this channel exists. Part 2. What actually happens to your legs while you sleep? Let us start with the basics because understanding the mechanism is the only way to understand why the solutions actually work. During the day, when you are upright and moving, two systems work together to keep your legs feeling functional and comfortable. The first is your venous circulation system, which is the network of veins responsible for returning blood from your legs back up to your heart against the force of gravity. The second is your lymphatic system, which is a separate but equally important network of vessels that collects excess fluid, waste products, and cellular debris from your tissues and transports it away for processing and elimination. Both of these systems rely heavily on one thing to function properly: movement. Specifically, the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the calf muscles, which act as a biological pump, squeezing blood and lymphatic fluid upward through their respective vessels every time you take a step or shift your weight. Research published in the European Journal of Vascular and Endovascular Surgery by Nicolaides and colleagues demonstrated that the calf muscle pump is responsible for approximately 40% of the venous return from the lower limbs during normal activity. It is not just a passive system waiting for the heart to do all the work. Your calf muscles are active participants in the circulation of blood and fluid throughout your legs every single moment you are moving. Now here is what happens when you lie down and sleep for 7 to 9 hours. The calf muscle pump effectively shuts off. Movement ceases. The rhythmic squeezing action that has been keeping your venous and lymphatic circulation moving all day stops almost completely. In a younger person with healthy, elastic, highly responsive blood vessel walls and a robust lymphatic system, this overnight pause causes minimal problems. The vessels maintain enough tone, and the valves within the veins maintain enough integrity to prevent significant backflow and fluid accumulation, even during the hours of stillness. But in a person over 60, particularly someone who has experienced years of declining vascular elasticity, venous valve function, and lymphatic capacity, those same 7 to 9 hours of stillness allow two things to happen simultaneously that produce the characteristic heavy leg feeling in the morning. First, venous pooling occurs. Blood that should be returning to the heart begins to accumulate in the small veins and capillaries of the lower legs and feet because the valves within the veins, which are designed to prevent backflow, have lost some of their functional integrity. Research from the Journal of Vascular Surgery, published by Labropoulos and colleagues, showed that venous valve incompetence is present in approximately 40% of adults over 60, even in the absence of visible varicose veins. This means nearly half of all seniors are experiencing measurable backflow and pooling in their lower leg veins every single night during sleep, without ever having been told this is happening. Second, lymphatic stasis develops. The lymphatic vessels in your legs, which have no pump of their own beyond muscle movement and body position changes, accumulate fluid and cellular waste products during the night that would normally be cleared during the day through movement. Research published in the Journal of Physiology by Schmidt-Schonbein demonstrated that lymphatic contractility, which is the ability of lymphatic vessels to independently contract and move fluid, declines significantly with age. By the time someone is in their late 60s or 70s, their lymphatic system is significantly less capable of self-clearing than it was at 40, making the overnight stillness a much more consequential problem than it was in earlier decades. The result of these two simultaneous overnight processes is the classic morning heavy leg feeling. Your legs are literally carrying a greater fluid burden when you wake up than when you went to sleep. The tissues are slightly engorged with venous blood that did not fully return to the heart overnight, and with lymphatic fluid that accumulated without being cleared. Every step in those first minutes of the morning feels heavier and more effortful than it should, because physiologically, your legs actually are heavier than they were before you went to bed. And here is the part that makes this particularly relevant for you right now. This process is not fixed. It is not inevitable. And it responds remarkably well to specific targeted interventions that require no medication, no expensive equipment, and in some cases less than 5 minutes of your time. But before we get to the solutions, I want to make sure we cover one more crucial piece of the puzzle that most people completely miss. Part 3. The circulation piece your doctor probably skips over. Type yes in the comments right now if you have ever been told by a doctor or anyone else that your heavy legs are just part of getting older and there is not much to be done. I want to know how many of you have heard that. And I want you to know that what you were told was not completely accurate. It was incomplete. Because here's what the research actually shows about circulation after 60 and why it matters so profoundly to the morning heaviness experience. A landmark study published in Circulation by Licata and Levy demonstrated that arterial stiffness increases progressively after age 50 in a measurable, consistent pattern. Arterial stiffness means the walls of your arteries, the vessels carrying oxygen-rich blood from your heart to your legs, lose their natural elasticity. In elastic arteries, each heartbeat sends a pulse wave that delivers oxygen to your tissues, and the artery's natural recoil helps push blood onward and supports the return flow back to your heart. In stiff arteries, that recoil is diminished. Driving pressure drops, oxygen-rich blood reaches your leg tissues less efficiently, and oxygen-depleted blood returns to your heart more slowly. This is critically important because it means your morning heaviness isn't just about fluid buildup during sleep. It's also driven by reduced arterial efficiency during the day, leaving leg tissues in a state of relative oxygen debt that shows up as heaviness, fatigue, and that lead-like feeling with your first steps. Research from the American Journal of Hypertension by Mitchell and colleagues confirmed that arterial stiffness is independently linked to reduced exercise tolerance, increased leg fatigue while walking, and greater difficulty with daily activities in adults over 60. This isn't a minor background issue. It's a central driver of the daily experience for seniors working to maintain independence and activity. Now, I want to pause here for a moment because I know this has been heavy with information, and I want to make sure you are still with me. Drop a number in the comments right now. Type 1 if you experience heavy legs mainly in the morning that get better as the day goes on. Type 2 if your legs feel heavy most of the day. Type 3 if you also get swelling in your ankles or feet by evening. This matters because it tells me and tells you which specific mechanism is most dominant in your situation, and which of the solutions we're about to cover should be your highest priority. Part 4. The role of nitric oxide and why most seniors are running on empty. Here is something that I genuinely believe most seniors have never had explained to them, and that changes the entire picture when you understand it. Inside the inner lining of every blood vessel in your body, which is called the endothelium, there are specialized cells that produce a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is one of the most important molecules in your cardiovascular system. It is a natural vasodilator, meaning it causes blood vessels to relax and widen, which reduces the resistance that blood has to overcome to flow through the vessel. It prevents the blood vessel walls from becoming inflamed. It inhibits the clumping of platelets, which reduces clot risk, and it plays a direct role in regulating the tone and responsiveness of both arteries and veins throughout the lower limbs. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine by Ignarro, Furchtgott, and Murad, the work that earned them the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1998, established the fundamental importance of nitric oxide in vascular function. And subsequent research specifically examining aging populations has shown something critically important for everyone watching this video today. Nitric oxide production by the endothelium declines substantially with age. A study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology by Sellermayer and colleagues showed that endothelial function, which is the technical term for the endothelium's ability to produce adequate nitric oxide and regulate vascular tone, is measurably impaired in the majority of adults over 60 compared to younger adults, even in the absence of diagnosed cardiovascular disease. What does this mean in practical terms for the person who wakes up every morning with heavy legs? It means that the natural system your body uses to keep blood vessel walls relaxed, flexible, and responsive is operating at a reduced capacity. It means that the vessels in your legs are carrying a higher baseline resistance than they were a decade ago. It means that when you first stand up in the morning after 8 hours of the venous pooling and lymphatic stasis we discussed earlier, your blood vessels are not only dealing with the accumulated fluid burden from overnight, but also doing so with a vasodilation system that is running at significantly less than full capacity. The combination of these two realities, the overnight fluid accumulation and the reduced nitric oxide-driven vasodilatory capacity, is the complete explanation for why the first 20 to 30 minutes of your morning feel so dramatically different from how you felt the evening before you went to sleep. And here is the genuinely exciting part. Nitric oxide production can be measurably increased through specific dietary choices and specific types of physical activity. Research published in the Journal of Nutrition by Bryan and colleagues showed that dietary nitrates found in specific foods are converted by the body through a two-step process into nitric oxide with direct and measurable effects on vascular tone within hours of consumption. We are going to talk about exactly which foods do this and how to incorporate them in just a moment. But first, I want to address the third and final major mechanism driving your morning heavy legs, because without understanding this piece, the picture is incomplete. Part 5. The nerve and muscle communication breakdown most people never suspect. I want to ask you something directly right now. When your legs feel heavy in the morning, does the heaviness feel purely physical, like your legs are full of fluid or lead? Or does it also have a quality of weakness or unresponsiveness, like your legs are there but they are not quite connected to you yet in the first few minutes after waking? If you recognize that second description even partially, I want you to type both in the comments, because what you are describing is not just a circulation issue, it is also a neuromuscular issue, and addressing it requires a slightly different approach. We covered motor neuron loss in our first video in this series, and we discussed how the aging nervous system loses the nerve cells responsible for sending clear, fast, powerful signals from the brain to the muscle fibers. What we did not cover in that video is the specific relationship between this motor neuron decline and the heavy leg experience in the morning. During sleep, the motor pathways between your brain and your lower limb muscles enter a state of reduced activity. This is completely normal and appropriate. The brain is focused on repair, memory consolidation, and hormonal regulation during sleep, and does not need to maintain active motor pathways to the legs. But in a senior with significant motor neuron loss, which research published in Muscle and Nerve by Doherty and colleagues showed affects the majority of adults over 65 to a clinically significant degree, that reactivation of the motor pathways in the morning takes longer and requires more conscious effort than it does in a younger nervous system. This is why the first 10 to 20 minutes of the morning feel not just heavy, but also slightly disconnected and unresponsive for many seniors. The motor pathways are genuinely slower to come back online. The nerve-to-muscle signal is genuinely weaker in the first waking moments. And the combination of this neurological morning inertia with the physical morning heaviness from venous pooling and lymphatic stasis creates a perfect storm of difficult early morning mobility that most seniors simply accept as an inevitable feature of getting older. It is not inevitable, it is addressable, and here is how. Part 6. The morning protocol that addresses all three mechanisms simultaneously. Everything we have covered so far, the venous pooling, the lymphatic stasis, the arterial stiffness, the reduced nitric oxide production, and the slower neuromuscular morning reactivation, all of it responds to a specific sequence of actions performed in the first 10 minutes after waking. Not an hour later, not after breakfast, in the first 10 minutes while you are still in your bedroom. I am going to walk you through this sequence now, and I want you to listen very carefully, because the order matters as much as the actions themselves. Before I do, drop a thumbs up on this video right now if you are learning things in this video that nobody has ever explained to you before. Every single thumbs up helps this information reach more seniors who need it, and I am genuinely grateful for every one. The first action is ankle circles performed before your feet touch the floor. Before you stand up, before you sit up fully, while you are still in bed or as you sit on the edge of the mattress, rotate both ankles slowly and deliberately through their full range of motion. 10 slow circles clockwise with both feet simultaneously, then 10 slow circles counterclockwise. This sounds almost absurdly simple, but the mechanism behind it is directly supported by research. The ankle joint contains a rich network of venous and lymphatic vessels that respond immediately to joint movement. Research published in the Journal of Physiology by Laughlin and colleagues demonstrated that passive joint movement without any muscle contraction activates mechanoreceptors in the joint capsule that trigger a reflex vasodilation response in the vessels supplying and draining that joint. In plain language, moving your ankles before you stand up begins opening the venous return and lymphatic drainage pathways in your lower legs before you have even placed any weight on them. You are giving your circulation system a head start before the demands of standing and walking begin. The second action is a seated calf pump sequence performed on the edge of the bed. Sit up fully on the edge of the bed with both feet flat on the floor. Then begin rhythmically raising and lowering your heels from the floor in a smooth, continuous pumping motion, your toes remaining in contact with the floor throughout. Perform this continuously for 60 full seconds without stopping. This movement directly activates the calf muscle pump we discussed earlier. Research from the journal Phlebology by Flower and colleagues demonstrated that 60 seconds of calf muscle pumping in a seated position produces a measurable and significant reduction in lower leg venous pressure and improves venous return, equivalent to approximately 5 minutes of slow walking. You are essentially jump-starting the biological pump that spent the last 8 hours doing almost nothing, and giving it the activation signal it needs before the full weight-bearing demands of standing are placed on a leg that is still carrying its overnight fluid burden. The third action is a slow standing march performed beside the bed for 60 seconds. After completing your seated calf pump, stand up slowly using the bed frame or a bedside table for support if needed. Find your balance, and then begin a slow, deliberate standing march, lifting each knee to approximately hip height, holding for 1 second, and lowering slowly before lifting the other. Continue for 60 full seconds. This movement serves 3 simultaneous purposes. It continues the calf and lower limb venous and lymphatic pumping that the previous 2 movements initiated. It begins the process of neuromuscular reactivation of the lower limb motor pathways, sending clear and repeated signals from the brain to the leg muscles that the day has begun and full motor engagement is required. And it begins a gentle increase in heart rate that supports improved cardiac output and therefore improved arterial perfusion pressure to the leg tissues. Research from the British Journal of Sports Medicine by Myers and colleagues showed that low-intensity rhythmic lower limb movement performed within the first 10 minutes of waking produces measurably better lower limb circulation and tissue perfusion compared to passive rising and immediate sedentary activity, such as sitting at a breakfast table, regardless of total daily activity levels. These 3 movements together take approximately 3 minutes and require no equipment, no floor work, no gym clothing, and no significant physical exertion. They are simply the minimum effective morning activation sequence that addresses the three primary mechanisms of morning leg heaviness simultaneously and directly. Part 7. Putting it all together. Your complete heavy leg reversal plan. We have covered an enormous amount of ground in this video. Let me bring it all together into a clear, practical daily plan that addresses every mechanism we have discussed. Every morning before your feet touch the floor, perform 10 ankle circles clockwise and 10 counterclockwise while still in bed or sitting on the edge of the mattress. Then immediately perform 60 seconds of seated calf pumps on the edge of the bed. Then stand slowly and perform 60 seconds of standing marches beside the bed. Within the first 30 minutes of waking, drink a full glass of water before anything else. Include dietary nitrates in your morning meal, either through pure beetroot juice or a spinach and rocket-containing smoothie or breakfast. Put on graduated compression stockings before your first activity of the day, and keep them on until you sit down for the evening. In the afternoon, spend 30 minutes with your legs elevated above heart level. Continue your lower limb resistance exercises 4 to 5 days per week. In the evening, reduce your sodium intake in the final 3 hours before bed. And tonight, either elevate the foot of your bed by 6 to 8 centimeters, or sleep on your left side with a pillow between your knees. This is the complete protocol. Not one piece of it is difficult. Not one piece of it is expensive, and every single piece of it is backed by published, peer-reviewed research in respected clinical journals. But the most important thing I can tell you about this protocol is this: consistency is everything. Not perfection, consistency. Missing a day will not undo your progress. Missing 3 weeks will. The biological changes that produce lasting reversal of morning leg heaviness occur gradually and cumulatively. They reward the people who show up every day, even imperfectly, over the people who execute the protocol perfectly for 2 weeks and then stop. Before we finish today, I want you to do one thing. Scroll down to the comments right now and type what you are going to change tonight. Is it the foot of your bed, the glass of water, the beetroot juice, the calf pumps before you stand up? Whatever feels most accessible to you right now, type it in the comments. Because the act of writing it down makes it real in a way that just thinking about it never does. I am going to be reading every single comment throughout today and responding to as many as I possibly can. If this video has given you genuine insight into something you have been living with for years and never fully understood, I want to ask you 3 things. Give this video a thumbs up right now if you have not already. It takes 1 second and it helps this information reach more seniors who need it. Subscribe to Senior Strength Guide and press the bell for all notifications, because every week I am covering the conversations that your 12-minute appointment never gets to. And share this video with one person in your life who wakes up every morning with heavy legs and has been told there is not much to be done about it, because now you know that is not true, and so can they. The next video on this channel that I want you to watch is our first episode on muscle loss after 60, if you have not seen it yet, because everything we covered today about the calf muscle pump and the morning movement sequence builds directly on the protocols in that video. Watch it next. Thank you genuinely and completely for giving this video your full attention today. The fact that you are still here tells me something important about who you are and what you are willing to do for your own health. And that is exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. I am Dr. Marcus Bell. I will see you in the next video.